So I want you guys to go watch this. Oh my god, I got lotion on this lens, but this is one of the victims of Trump and Epstein. She came out in 2016, and I'm just now listening to this. It is very triggering for me, and people who have been abused or have gone through, some types of violations, sexual violations as children, and abuse itself. This will be very triggering, and to be honest, listening to this has been very triggering. But I have to make some points, and it isn't just about this woman. Okay, it's about a culture. It's about the way the United States, not just the United States, because this is happening all over the world. Trafficking young girls and stuff is happening all over the world, right? She tells the story in here, and I want you to go listen to this. Let me see. This is the video, and this is on Secular Talk. He put it out a day ago. Okay, so I want you to listen to a portion of it, just a small portion, because there's a point to this. So she talks about a girl. I think her name is Tiffany. It's not Trump's daughter, so don't think that it's Trump's other daughter, one of his daughters. She says it's not. That this girl was 15 years old, but Epstein had her, uh, this 15-year-old Tiffany, helping him to groom these other little young girls, okay? Because she was less menacing, she was their age or around their age. And this is the type of thing that people who are sexual predators and they are grooming and trafficking young women and children, right? And little boys too. I will not discard that this is not happening to little boys, because it is. The only thing is a lot of males are so ashamed about it, and women are too, but men are more ashamed of coming out that these type of things happen to them as well as small children. So you don't hear about it as much. But I would say that I would venture to say that a lot of these deviants don't care whether you're a boy or a girl. They don't give a shit, just as long as you're children. They don't give a fuck what gender you are. Um, so she goes on to say that Tiffany, in many of accounts that of the abuse that she speaks on concerning Trump. Now, this is her story. I'm going off of the story she's telling. Okay. Um, Says that Tiffany would tell her, oh, you don't have to worry. Like, one of the fantasies, and I won't say who, had a sexual fantasy of rape, and what he ended up doing was actually raping this girl as a small child. She was 13 years old. I have to collect my thoughts, because the anger I feel inside me about this it's a lot. Okay, so he takes her virginity at 13 years old, and if you listen to this or this video, you're gonna understand what I'm talking about. And she talks about Tiffany always being there to basically encourage her into these sexual acts that she was not affiliated with. This girl wanted to be a model. Back in the 1980s, every little girl wanted to be a model. In the 1970s and 80s and early 90s, little girls wanted to be a model. That was like the end all be all, right? Roles for their when they grew up. But this particular person would make her put on a blonde wig and be like, oh, you look just like my daughter. But when you hear what he does to her, you're going to be, well, hopefully angered, because I'm fucking angry. The point I'm getting at with all of this being said is that we have an environment where we do not protect children at all. And if it's not your child, you seem not to give a fuck, right? The problem with that is, this is going to be, if you love this nation, if you're a person that claims you love this nation, If this shit doesn't stop and get corrected, if we go into 2026, 27, 28, 29, and 30 in the future of America, you might as well kiss America goodbye. It's going to be a third world country, because that's what people that have violated this young woman and her as a teenage child, that's what they're pushing. They're pushing for no rules, no regulations, and no laws. And I was thinking about the Real ID. If the Real ID was incorporated on people with righteous mindsets, a governing system with righteous mindsets, the Real ID would stop a lot of interstate commerce with sex trafficking little girls like her, right? When she was a little girl. It would stop that. But when you have a corrupt government who turns their back on pedophiles and people who are in this type of trafficking, right, of children, that Real ID will get corrupted. So I want to say that for about the government. So if you don't want this government, if you don't want the United States to fucking implode on itself from corruption, then you need to fucking pay attention to these stories of these young girls and little boys. If the little boys ever come out, Justin Bieber hasn't even come out yet, but everybody assumes and thinks that Justin Bieber has been a child that has been trafficked and has been violated, right? But you don't hear them coming out. This little girl is speaking. She said when she saw this person trying to run for president, she felt an obligation to the country to come out and speak about what happened to her. And mind you, I'm going to go back to the little girl Tiffany. So Tiffany is also a victim because she was 15 years old and she was used as a tool to disarm red flags from these little girls so that they would participate in being abused by these grown-ass motherfucking men monsters, okay? But I want you to listen to this, okay?
Something that they want to keep quiet. They don't want to ruin their current relationships. They don't want to reopen that can of worms. How many people just like her? I mean, we knew Epstein was caught with, what was it, like a dozen different passports of girls from like Lithuania and Czechoslovakia and like all these places. It's very clear what this was, guys. It's very clear what we're looking at.
Basically, I would never, as far as keeping proof of any of the trips, the only person, I never told my parents, there would be no there would be no good outcome of telling my parents. They would have grounded me. I would have never been allowed out of the house. My father.
So when people say, well, I never heard of this story until you were older. The reason why a lot of these young girls and little boys don't tell the story of their abuse, their sexual abuses and things like that, is because, for one, they fear the outcome of losing their parents. That's one. And two, it's very shameful. And a lot of times, until they become adults, is the only time they feel safe enough to even speak on it. Okay?
Would have come unglued. I did tell a friend, she's still my best friend to this day. She knows everything. She knows it all. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to save the country that I believe that we have. I know what he does behind closed doors. Like, if that's all, I'm willing to sacrifice my life to put our country back in the right, like going maybe in some type of positive direction. Not even, there's no right or wrong, but a positive direction. This guy's not going to take us anywhere positive. As far as my life changing by coming out with this information, I've thought long and hard about whether or not I should, and I've gone back and forth.
By the way, I also want to point out, with the dump of the new Epstein emails that we got from the Epstein estate, you had Epstein reacting to this in real time in the emails, where he said, well, if there's anybody who can make this go away, it's Trump. He said something like that. So, like, He knew he was getting sued by her. Like, this was a big deal to them.
But I think that I think that the American people need to know what kind of man this person is. And if my life changes because of that, then so be it. But the American people need to know what they're dealing with. If I had the chance to talk to Donald Trump, I would run the other way. I'm scared of him like I've never been scared of anything else in my entire life. I can't.
I want to stop it right there. So, I know I've told the story on here about being molested by my uncle at 11 years old. And there was a lot of, when I became an adult and I finally spoke on it, about what the fuck that was. And there was, accusations to the victim and all that other shit, right? When I was 11, after he was trying to molest me, every time there was a family function, I would run the other way. I would find any way I possibly could to not be around that person, right? For my own safety, because I understood I was a protector of my own body at 11 years old on up, and I saw him as an adult. And when I saw him as an adult at a family function, I fucking stayed away from the family function. I wouldn't fucking go around the family function. Okay, and I was in my 20s. And when she said this, I know what she's saying is 100% the fucking truth. Because when you're violated as a young child and you can't really fully protect yourself, and this woman, the story she tells you about what had happened to her is fucking unbelievable, but it's the truth, right? It's like fucking crazy. The person that gets victimized by the person as a small child tend to still think of even though they're in a grown body, they think of that person as if they were that age when the shit happened to them. I cannot reiterate enough that if people don't fucking correct this problem in the United States right now and get the right people in law enforcement and the right people in government to stop this shit, you might as well, any investments you think you have in America, doesn't matter what the business is, any investments you think, it's gonna fucking collapse. Everything's fucking collapsing, and there will be no worth to the United States aside from landmass, and that will be it. That'll be it. So we're headed in that direction. And if you don't think God's hand's in this, God's hand is in this. So you're given the opportunity now to do autocorrection and to correct things that are wrong in America. Slavery, putting the Japanese in fucking internment camps in America. Like, now is the time to correct all the fucking wrongs in America. What we've done to the indigenous people in America. Now is the time to correct the wrongs of America. But instead of correcting the wrongs in America, we're creating more wrongs in America. Let her continue.
I can't explain it to you, but the fear of him even being in the next room, I have panic attacks. The last encounter that I had with Donald Trump, Tiffany approached me about a rape scene that was supposed to be played out, and I didn't like the sound of that at all. But Tiffany promised, assured me that it wasn't going to be, if it was anything I wasn't comfortable with, we could stop. That she would be right there.
Now, Tiffany is her teenage handler. Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell put Tiffany over this young girl who was a virgin at the time, who was forced into sexual acts with these men that she had no idea about. And Tiffany, they told Tiffany what to tell this young girl. They used Tiffany like a tool and a handler with this young girl. And that happens a lot in these type of scenarios.
And that it wouldn't get out of hand, and that it was a fantasy, like it wasn't really going to happen. And so I told her that I would. She basically, Tiffany was always nice to me. It wasn't that I trusted her, else and I wouldn't always trusted her or done what she asked me to. But she was there, and
part of the reason why she trusted Tiffany is because Tiffany was her age, and Tiffany was in it, and she I mean, Tiffany was in her ear to build trust to do these things, okay? Tiffany was there to disarm her. Tiffany was there to take the red flags away from her, the inhibitions away from her, the fear away from her. Because Tiffany was 15 years old.
Came in and I was basically tied to a bed with pantyhose. And he tied him, and they were so tight it hurt to even like lay there. And I tried to say something, and it was like, he just, shut up, shut up, bitch. It was basically like he was being really, really rough. And I understand, it just didn't seem like a fantasy. And I started to get scared, and he was, basically like ripping my clothes off, and I was actually I got freaked out. And I told him that I didn't want to do this. So I screamed over for Tiffany, and she was like, Mr. Trump, and she's only, this is scaring her. And he's like, oh, you shut up too. He just turned into this animal. It was like a completely different person. It was like everyone in the room was.
He wasn't a completely different person. This is what he is. This is who he is. If you think he has a kind part about him, that's the part that's the deceptive part. What he did there is exactly who he is. That's who he is. That's his narcissistic self showing truly who he is. The part that's not him is the person that tries to act like they're the Nobel Peace Prize winner, the person that doesn't start wars, the person that doesn't do this, the person that builds businesses and stuff. That's the actual alter ego of this narcissist. What he did to her is exactly who the fuck he is. That's what narcissists are. That's what they do.
Scared of him, and I was. It was. I couldn't do anything about it, and he ripped off all my clothes, and he started to basically have sex with me, and I was screaming because I'd never had sex before. It was my first time, and Tiffany was yelling at him too. She was saying I was a virgin, and he told us to just shut the fuck up and just basically.
You think he didn't know she was a virgin? You think he didn't know that? This is why men who choose children choose children. They choose these children because they know exactly their innocence. And they also don't give a fuck about it.
Took my virginity while I was crying and telling him to stop. And that's basically begging for him to just stop. And Tiffany didn't know what else to do either. No one was there to help us, or me. And so.
Let me just say this. When I was 3 years old, I was raped by not a stranger's, it was a woman that my mom had babysitting us, and she had a teenage son, and he took me in the basement and he raped me at 3 years old. However, when I actually allowed myself to have sex with the person I chose, I consider myself a virgin because I had control over who I personally was giving sex to. And at 3 years old, of course, everything grew back and everything like that. Like, not grew back, normally grew back, but, her story of him taking her virginity and violating her. So I just want to put this out there for any young girl who's gone through this. Just because somebody takes something from you as a small child doesn't mean you cannot reclaim it. You cannot reclaim what you lost. It is your right to reclaim. If it's virginity, you can reclaim it. You can reclaim those things back to yourself. You can reclaim your power and then choose who you want to give yourself to in the future willingly. I just want to put that part out there as well. Okay?
So after the fact, he basically finishes it. It didn't take that long at all. I mean, but it was just, it felt like it was like 5.5 hours. I felt like it was an eternity. Like, I don't even know how long it was, but he was done, and I was crying, and Tiffany was consulting me, and she was, apologizing. She told me that she just would never put me in that situation again. But he comes over mad because I was crying, and he said that I should be thankful that someone like Donald Trump took my virginity. He basically didn't say took my virginity. He said I should be glad that someone like Donald Trump popped my cherry and not some pimply little 14-year-old. And I just was like, what if I
A pimply little 14-year-old took mine. And I'm sorry, rape is rape. Period. It doesn't matter who's doing it.
I said, what if I get pregnant? Not even talking to him. I didn't want to talk to him. I was talking to Tiffany. And he said, well, you'll get an abortion then, bitch. And then just walked away. And I asked, I went, I told Tiffany I needed to go home. I never went back again.
Jesus Christ.
I guess.
Anyways, if you actually love this country and you don't believe in this type of behavior, now is the time to fucking do the right thing. Now is the fucking time to do the right thing for this country. Right the wrongs and stop making fucking more wrongs.